Welcome to episode 9 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football and make the replacement refs look like pros. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
Good, man. We killed it this week.
We did. I'm excited to talk about that. But, honestly, what week do we not kill it? Just in life.
Nah, I don't know, man. There's a few weeks we haven't done so well.
So we're live right here on YouTube each and every week to talk about how we kill it in life at 8:30 p.m. Pacific, right after Monday Night Football. If you're tired of punditry or just want a fresh voice, come listen to a couple random dudes talk about football and have a good time. This week we've got a recap of this week's games, lots of awesome discussions. We're going to be doing our mid-season review this week. Excited about that. And as always, to close out our show, our weekly predictions. So there's a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and dive right into our game of the week, the New Orleans Saints at the Minnesota Vikings. Gosh, where do we even start with this? I guess I just want to say that Adam Thielen is a very good receiver. Let's start with that. Can we talk about him for a second?
Well, yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but he is only one of two players ever to have 8 games in a row with 100 or more receiving yards.
One of only 2 players ever?
Yes.
See, that's surprising to me. 8 games doesn't seem like a lot.
So the only stipulation that may be true, I don't remember seeing this, is 8 games to start a season. But I'm pretty sure that wasn't in there. Like, I'm pretty sure that stipulation was not in there, so that it was just 8 games period in a row.
Okay.
Like, guess who the other one was?
Jerry Rice. I don't know.
Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson. Oh, your favorite, Megatron?
My favorite.
Yeah,
what?
no, just so everybody knows, Megatron is Joseph's favorite all-time receiver. No, so yeah, dude, he's tearing it up. He's on pace for like 1,900 yards or something.
Well, yeah, and he has amazing hands. So he's not very fast. His route running is pretty good, but it's mostly just, Cousins is accurate, but also he catches it. He has great hands, and after the catch, he's very solid. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
His catch percentage is really high, too.
Yeah, and he can just make all kinds of he made some crazy, like, over the cornerback's head catches, and it's like impossible to miss that guy. So yeah, he ended the night with 7 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown. So solid stat sheet, but just watching him play is so fun. And Drew Brees had his worst game of the season.
So I looked into that. I did some very in-depth, but the hard way of looking at how low that performance was in terms of yards.
It was his first interception of the season.
So that is true. In terms of his career, though, so I looked at every single year he was on the Saints, the game log for every single year he was on the Saints. So other than the last game of his first year as a Saint, in which he only started and played for 5 minutes, he only had 5 attempts, so that doesn't really count. He was taken out. Other than that, this is the lowest passing yards he's had in his entire Saints career, 13 years.
See, I was just going to talk about the season, but that's interesting. So this is his least prolific game of his career.
Saints career. I didn't look at the
Saints career. Okay, you didn't look at the Chargers. Yeah.
And here's what's amazing too, just to look at his consistency and how prolific he's been. In his 13 years with the Saints, he's only had 16 games with less than 200 passing yards, and half of those were in the first 2 seasons. So what that means is, the last 11 seasons as a Saint, he's only had 8 games under 200 passing yards. That's ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah, it was weird because watching the game,
he started hot.
You wouldn't have if you weren't keeping track of the number of receptions or anything, and you didn't look at the stat sheet at the end of the game, you would not have guessed that his yard total was that low. Because he still completed 18 passes, 18 of his 23 passes. It's just the yard total was really low, and he only had the one touchdown. The defense shouldered a lot of the weight in this game.
Yeah,
They
well,
had
he also
two
threw for.
scores.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the defense had 2 touchdowns, so they were definitely the difference in the game.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, he, like you said, he had 18 completions, which was still ended up being 78.3 completion percentage, which is crazy. He's still over 77% for the season. I mean that's insane. That's already half the season. So think about how bad he would have to be the next half. Well, almost half. They're 6-1. Think about how bad he would have to be the next 9 games to drop his season percentage below 70%.
Right.
That's just insane. Yeah. So he didn't have that many yards. There's one thing I want to add. Adam Thielen's catch percentage is 77%. Guys, that's crazy. Cousins is at around 70% throwing right now, and obviously there are probably some bad throws to him. So he's basically catching anything that's catchable.
Yeah. No, that's for sure what it looked like. Yeah, so this game was, I thought this game a lot of it came down to the pressure on Cousins. The Saints had really good pressure on the line. They got 4 sacks. And it wasn't like he was holding on to the ball for too long. He was trying to chuck it out there, but I think their O-line, Minnesota's O-line, is clearly their weak point at this point in the season, and they're going to need to try to shore that up, I think, if they want to go far. Because if you look at any of the other teams that are doing well in the NFC, every team that I can think of off the top of my head has a pretty good D-line. So the Rams have a great D-line. The Panthers, even, who are kind of coming up in the South, they have a good shot at a wild card, have a good D-line. The Eagles have a pretty good D-line. So, I mean, just about every team in the top has a pretty good D-line. The Bears. So, I worry a little bit about that. I feel like they are in the top 3 to consider for the championship game. The other 2 being the Rams and the Saints. But their O-line really showed through as a weak point in this game.
Well, yeah, it's amazing that the Saints, Drew Brees didn't get sacked once, and yet we're playing, they're playing the Vikings, right? The defensive team in Minnesota. But then the Vikings quarterback gets sacked 4 times by the Saints, who are never really considered to have a good defense. Drew Brees isn't very prolific, and yet they scored 30 points. Cousins, his stats are good, but they're a little, I wouldn't say garbage time, but they're a little inflated. Like they weren't able to make big plays when they needed to. The third quarter was key, but it was around halfway through the third quarter you could tell that it was over. They collapsed. That pick 6 killed them. That pick 6 basically ended the game. That made it 27-13. That wasn't mostly Cousins' fault. I think I watched it over and over again. Wide receiver Diggs, he stopped in his route. I think he wanted to try to break free, and he stopped. And Cousins threw it like the millisecond after Diggs stopped his route, and was throwing it to where Diggs would have been if he kept running. So it's probably a half there. But after that, in the third quarter, the game was pretty much done. You could tell the Saints defense actually was getting better throughout the game. Like, their defense was great in the third and fourth quarter, and the Vikings collapsed. Cousins, though he had prolific stats, doesn't reflect their lack of big plays in the game.
Yeah. And yeah, he was 31 for 41 for 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. That was a pick 6. So
no, it wasn't. I wouldn't say the loss was his fault, though. Like, I thought he played well. They just couldn't make big plays. Their defense, obviously was giving up a high efficiency of catches on the Saints side, and those big defensive stops by the Saints is what made the game.
Right. Yeah, if you had to blame this game on something, it would be the O-line. Yeah. In my opinion. Okay. So we'll move on now to our weekly Niners and Dolphins check-in. So we're going to go ahead and start with the Dolphins. And to switch things up a little bit, I'm going to start to talking about Joseph's team. So this week, the Dolphins played at Houston. So my first thought was just, what in the world happened in this game? I mean, it was just all over the place. So many crazy things went down. I still don't like how Osweiler throws. It bothers me, and just every throw past 15 yards, I feel like is just up for grabs. It's really nerve-wracking. I can't imagine being a Dolphins fan watching him. Every time the ball comes out of its hands, I'd just be cringing, wondering what's going to happen. His interception was awful, and there were several more almost picks that he threw. So I think that just, we've talked about this ad nauseum with you guys, that just the quarterback situation is just kind of garbage right now, and that's keeping you guys, one of the things that are keeping you guys from being a playoff contender. Your running game was decent. Gore, I think that guy's still going to be running the ball when he's 60. I mean, he still has legs.
Is the Drew Brees of running backs?
Yeah, no, I thought so. The funny thing is, when he was with the Niners, so he got let go from the Niners back in 2000, at the end of the 2014 season. And so we went to the Colts in 2015. I thought in 2014 that he was a year, maybe 2 years away from retiring. No, he had 3 years with the Colts and now a year with the Dolphins, and he's still running like he's like he just got in the league. So he's got more in the tank, and it's just really, he's a really fun back to watch. Unfortunately, I don't know if like we talked about in our running back top 10s, he's definitely not a top 10 running back of all time. I think, though, even though you and I may argue about whether or not he really deserves a Hall of Fame spot, I think he's going to get it just because of the clout around him. But cool, clout's a negative word. The kind of the hype around him. I think he will get in, even though I'm actually not sure that he should. But anyway, I digress. I like Kenyon Drake. I think he has promise. So I think you guys, that's one thing you guys can hang your hat on, is your run game. But on the flip side, you guys have no run defense. So something has to happen there. You've got some talented guys on defense, but it just seems like the play is really inconsistent. And then Watson was super elusive in the pocket in that game, and he just had all day to throw in the second half. And that was, to me, that was kind of the killer. Because if I remember, it's been a few days now, because that was the Thursday night game. But I think, what was the score at halftime? Was it? I want to say it was very much still a game at halftime.
Yeah, wasn't it? I think it was 14-10 or 17-10.
It was something like that, yeah. So it was still very close, and I felt like it just got away from you guys at the end. But there were some great plays, so I'll hand it over to you after this. The Hopkins one-handed catch was just crazy. The Amendola touchdown pass, and then that ball that fumbled out of the Miami player to the next Miami player, like 15 yards down the field. I've never seen a play like that. That was amazing.
I think it was Jakeem Grant, and the first guy who hit him knocks the ball loose. The ball flies backwards, hits another Houston player off the helmet, flies forward, and Devontae Parker is there and catches it.
Yeah, it was absolutely crazy. I've never seen a play like that in my life.
There was also I don't know if it was Hopkins or Fuller, but there's a play where it's only like a 15, 20-yard pass, and then the guy just has breakout speed and somehow runs another 40 yards for a touchdown for Houston. Like, that was not looking like that was going to be a touchdown throw, and the guy just sprints. So there were some really exciting big plays in that game. I guess I'll just kind of take over from there. Yeah, just 10 things that you said. Run defense is poor. I think Gore and Drake each had about 60 yards, but were pretty efficient, 4.5-ish yards per carry. Parker finally showed up. I think Devontae Parker had 2 or 3 receptions before this game for the whole season. And he was drafted really high. I think 3 or 4 years ago. He's been running his mouth a lot, but not his legs a lot. He has not been at all really playing for us, and has had some controversy with his words with the team in the last few weeks, and that tension's building. So it says here that he's unexpected to be traded. I wouldn't mind if he gets traded. We'll get to that later, but he had a decent game. It was good to see that. Let's see here, what else? Yeah, Watson looks great. I mean, him and Patrick Mahomes look very similar. And what's good about Watson is he's not relying on his legs. He's trying to be more of a pocket passer, and he's showing that he can. Right? He has a good arm, and he's pretty accurate. And the Texans are an exciting team. So I did have him as my sleeper, and it looks like that's showing off. And hopefully they can keep going. So I think a bright future ahead for the Texans, especially if that defensive line with Clowney and Watt can stay healthy, because that defensive line is those edge rushers are looking very strong.
Yeah, they had a slow start to the season, but they're starting to look better and better each week, and Watson seems to be coming back to form. I think he just had to shake off that injury from last year, but at this point, I mean, I said at the beginning of the season that it was the Jags' division to lose, but with the way their offense is played, I think that Houston's going to overtake them in the next. I mean, I think they've already actually, if I don't remember the records, I think they're either tied right now or within a game.
Oh, no.
Or is Houston over by 1?
Houston's 5-3, and I think the Jags are 3-4 or 3-5.
Okay, so yeah, the Houston's already overtaken them then. I wouldn't be surprised to see Houston win. I mean, they don't seem like they have much competition right now.
Yeah, that's what that is right. Houston's 5-3, and Jacksonville is 3-5. So
okay.
They're 2 games ahead. And then I guess we'll switch over to the Niners now.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the Niner game?
So I don't know their names. Number 23 and number 24 just need to be fined or cut right away.
From the Niners?
Yeah, they're in your secondary.
So number 23 is Ahkello Witherspoon, and 24 is K'Wan Williams.
Yeah, so I'm going to say just one general thing and then speak on 3 plays, and then we'll move on. Just generally, I guess 2 things generally. First, I think in the first half, Kyle Shanahan thought he was playing golf. Must have played golf recently because he was trying to get the lowest score in the first half. Both teams were. And then Beathard, my goodness, he's trying. He's trying his best. He really is. He seems to be one of the only guys out there putting his heart into the game. Because your offensive line is very porous, and he's just getting beat up. It was a rough game to watch, but the specific plays were there were 6 minutes left, and it was 3rd down, and he goes deep to number 81, I think, and there was a terrible missed call on pass interference. I don't know if you saw it, but it was a very important play. Beathard goes deep, the guy was open, and the linebacker is running towards him, and he just basically flips the guy. He because the wide receiver for the Niners jumps up, and the guy comes underneath him, hits him, and they might have thought he was going for the ball, but it was not. I think it was just clearly pass interference. I don't know how they missed it. So big play there, big miss for the refs. Okay, 2 minutes and 35 seconds left. Crucial play. 3rd down, 3rd and 5. The Niners have the ball. They get this. They can probably win the game, ice out the clock, or get close enough for a field goal. The Cardinals have 8 players on the line, 7 directly on the line, and then an 8th guy on the right-hand side about 3 feet back. So Kittle, okay, he blew it here. The Niners have 3 wide receivers on their right side, so the defensive left. They ended up rushing 7 guys. One of the guys in the middle of the defensive line, he was a linebacker or safety. He backed out because he saw the wide receivers open. Well, guess what? The wide receivers were open because they left Kittle, left the guy who ended up sacking Beathard completely unabated to the quarterback. Kittle, it was pathetic. I watched that play I think 7 or 8 times
Yeah,
over.
I think it was Buda Baker.
Yeah, Buda Baker. So watch that play over and over again. Just awful, man. I'm sure you were just burning because if I know I was, I know you were, because Kittle just runs this simple routes, 5-8 yards, turns around, and clearly they were blitzing. I mean, who does Kittle think is going to block him? Check was blocking one of the blitzers on the other side, so there was no one there, and he just takes out Beathard. So just terrible presence of mind for the offensive coordinator, and for Kittle, who's just like, oh look, the guy that's lining up with me runs past me. He's blitzing. He's clearly blitzing, and so there's that. And then lastly, when the Cardinals get the ball back, that touchdown and 2-point conversion, number 23 and 24, just pathetic. I watched those plays over and over again, and the Cardinals ran. Hopefully, it was intentional, because if it was, they were brilliant play calls. If you watch it slowly and over and see how the wide receivers move to fool the defense, so brilliant play calling on the Cardinals, if indeed it was intentional. And your secondary was atrocious on that touchdown throw. And then Fitzgerald should not have gotten in, because when 24 was following him, he should have cut under, but he went around, I think, 23, because the other wide receiver for the Cardinals pushed 23 back. 24 should have cut under, would have tackled Fitzgerald before, but instead he went around 23, and Fitzgerald was already in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. So just not, your secondary's not very intelligent, and it's showing. So I'll end there.
There you have it. That's a wrap for this week. Joseph has condemned the 49ers at every level, so that's it. We're ending the show early. No, I can't disagree with anything you said. Although there was one factual thing in there. I think the second touchdown pass, which one of them was to Larry Fitzgerald and the other one was to Christian Kirk. I don't remember.
The second one was not Fitzgerald.
Okay, the second was to Christian Kirk then. That one was actually defended by our third string strong safety, because the first two got injured in the game. So there was a clear, to me, that was a clear play where the Cardinals coach just said, "Oh, where's the third string guy? Let's just throw at him." And then they did, and it was a touchdown. So I agree with you. The Fitzgerald 2-point conversion, K'Waun Williams looked like he weighed 50 pounds on that play. I mean, I completely agree about the secondary. It's a total disaster. I don't know what John Lynch saw in those guys in the draft. K'Waun Williams was actually I think we picked him up from the Browns in free agency, but the Witherspoon was a 3rd round draft pick. He has not. He's been so up and down. So people were joking in the first half that the betting line for this game was secretly for the World Series, because it was 5-3. So I liked your golf comment because it was fitting. So as always, I start with the good. So I thought the defense played 3.5 quarters of great football. 2 turnovers, 3 sacks, lots of 3-and-outs. Quarterback just couldn't get anything going. And I don't know. We can't finish games, but I'll get to that in a second. Ronald Blair looked good. He got another sack. He keeps being disruptive on the line. Jimmy Ward had his first good game in a really long time. He actually stayed healthy the whole game and had a great game. Although he did something in the game that bothered me, and I think it reveals some mentality issues that the team are going through right now, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. After the fumble by Jermaine Gresham. But the special teams continues to look solid. That's actually been one kind of undercurrent throughout the whole season so far, is that the return game has been pretty good. DJ Reed and Richie James have been really solid return men. So Dante Pettis muffed the punt in this game that was luckily recovered by Elijah Lee, but I don't actually even know why he was out there to return punts. He shouldn't be. Richie James is good at that, and Pettis should stay a receiver, but that's been strong. So now to the bad. So I think the thing I'm learning about this season is that I just have to keep everything in perspective. And the very first thing I have to keep in perspective is that CJ Beathard is a backup quarterback. Backup quarterbacks will have a great game, and then they'll have a terrible game, and then they'll have a terrible game, and then they'll have a great game. That's why they're backups. They're inconsistent, and they can't close out games. And his biggest weaknesses are that he holds onto the ball for way too long. He has no pocket awareness at all. He has no idea when pressure's coming. This week he just looked like someone told him, no matter what, just don't turn the ball over. Because there were times where you could see guys running at him, and he would just grab the ball and just sort of fall to the ground and just accept the sack, even though he probably could have ran out of it. And I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore about him, because he's obviously not our future. Garoppolo's the future. And we're just stuck with him for 13 games because Garoppolo has an ACL. So, but man, CJ is making these games unwatchable. He was 14 for 28, so 50% completion, 190 yards, 1 touchdown. Now he didn't turn the ball over, which was amazing. But there were just gobs of batted passes, 4 sacks. I thought 3 of them were because he had no awareness. And so enough said about him. I don't know how many more weeks I'm going to be able to keep complaining about him, because I don't think he's going to get any better. Second major theme is injuries. I mean, Foster out, Breida out, Tart out, Exum out, Mostert out. Kittle was out for several plays for concussion protocol. This team is made out of glass. I tweeted a reply to Matt Mayoko, who's one of the local guys reporters that covers the Niners, and I made a comment about the strength and conditioning and if there was a problem with that, and he basically responded saying, well, the guy that they have right now has only been there for 2 years, or this season and last season, and the comment I had made was that this was an issue that stretched back to all the way back to 2015, because we've been devastated by injuries every year since Harbaugh left. And he basically wrote it off by saying, oh, well, this guy's only been around for 2 years. And I don't know what to think. The only thing I could do that might put my mind at ease would be to do a bunch of research to figure out if every single one of these guys had college injury issues, because outside of that, I just cannot explain that in 8 games we've had dozens of players go down in terms of plays where guys go down. Just dozens of plays where 49ers go down. And it's just it's unacceptable. It has to change. And I don't know what to do or what to think about it anymore, other than just it has to change. I'll just close out by saying this was an embarrassing loss to an embarrassingly bad Cardinals team. This was a pride game that they needed to win, and they didn't. And to me, at this point, it's kind of unclear what the bigger problem is. Is it that there are just so many injuries that talent can't be properly evaluated, namely guys like Foster and Jaquiski Tart, or is it coaching and or the performance of the healthy players that's just bad or regressing that much? And to me, whichever you answer completely changes the way that you pursue the future of the franchise. But to me at this point, it's kind of impossible to answer that question. So I understand the coaches are in a tough spot, but things need to turn around. We need to start seeing guys that got drafted this year get more snaps. Our second round pick wide receiver, Dante Pettis, got 7 snaps today, even though Pierre Garcon was injured and out the whole game. That's unacceptable. These guys have to get more snaps. They have to get game time to be evaluated. If you're going to have a crap year like this year, you have to give your young talent an opportunity to be evaluated so that you know what your future is. It's just a duh to me, and I felt like that was a mistake. So, we can't close games. It's very frustrating. Next week we're playing the Raiders in Santa Clara this Thursday night on a short week, so we'll see what happens. The Raiders are also atrocious. My feeling is Derek Carr is going to still shred us in the secondary, and they're probably going to score 28 points like they did against the Colts, but we'll only be able to score 20, and so we'll lose. That's my guess. But the Niners will make it a heartbreaking loss by being in it till the very end. Okay, enough of that.
Let's here. Want me to quickly speed us through the last general segment for the specialty stuff?
The major news.
Part.
Yeah, you can go ahead and talk about that. That's fine.
So some big injuries the past few weeks. So Albert Wilson for the Dolphins has a pretty bad injured hip and might be out the rest of the season, at least several weeks. So that's bad. I mean, he was a big playmaker. I know, Jeremy, you've seen some of the games and you've seen him make some big plays, super fast, great in the open field. Him being out is big. And then for the Texans, Will Fuller with an ACL injury. He's going to be out the rest of the season completely. So that's huge for them. They were starting to pick it up. So it's big injuries there. And then some firings. The Browns decided to finally fire Hugh Jackson, and they also fired their offensive coordinator, Todd Haley. So, I mean, kind of, but like they won 2 games already this year, and were they really expected to do much? And there were some mishaps throughout the season so far, but I don't know if it was enough to at least fire Todd Haley, maybe Hugh Jackson, since he's been there for so long. But
this was his 3rd year as coach.
That's it? Oh, I thought it was longer than that. Okay.
And Todd, I don't know about Todd Haley. I don't really know much about him, but something on the coaching level had to give with this team, because I think the talent is starting to be there. I don't think this is a general management / roster issue really at this point.
Yeah, I guess they had to do something. Now's the time they had to do something, right? They didn't want to wait till the end of the year. So I do agree with that, but it's just kind of crazy to see how much turnover the Browns have had. They've had turnover at every major position, right? General manager, coach, and quarterback. I mean, from roster to top decision maker, they've had so much turnover in the last 15 years. So hopefully that can do something. Ryan Fitzpatrick is now going to start again for the Bucs. He brought him back in the 4th quarter, and they tied the game against the Bengals, who ended up with the game-ending, game-winning field goal. So that's pretty big because he had that one bad game a few weeks ago. They brought in Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was really poor, so hopefully they can be consistent. Because he had a really good game in the second half when they put him in. What else? What else we got, man? I think that's all I have.
Just a shout out to Adam Vinatieri for breaking the record for most points scored of all time.
That's right.
In his so it's his 23rd season, and he now has scored 2,550 points. So, congratulations to him. He also has like most points scored in the postseason and some other thing. Like he's leading in just about every category that a kicker could lead in, I think. So he's obviously straight on his way to the Hall of Fame and deserves recognition. So
I love how he's played I think he's played most of his career with New England, but he also played enough of it with the Colts. I love how he played, 8 to 10 seasons with Peyton Manning and then Tom Brady. Like, I mean, what better?
Yeah, but he's the only kicker to ever have scored. I think actually the only player to have ever scored more than 1,000 points with 2 different teams.
Wow.
So, congratulations to him. Dude, kickers can just get really old. Did you know that Phil Dawson is 53?
Wow, that is crazy.
I mean, how do you even relate to these like 22-year-old guys that are coming onto the team? How do you even
53?
Yeah, he's 53, dude.
Wow. His children are older than.
Yeah, I know. He's basically the team dad. It's crazy.
We got to move on, man. We got to move on.
All right, so real quick, we're gonna do our commentators say the darndest things. So this week, a little bit more on the I guess the humorous side rather than on the just.
He's 43.
Totally atrocious.
He's 43.
43?
Phil Dawson is 43. That's still old.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, I just looked it up.
Okay. Someone said he was 53. I should double fact check next time. So tonight, Jason Witten was talking about a Bills player, and he said, right after referring to this player, he said, this player, he represents everything this city is all about, grit and toughness. I don't know anything about
Jason.
Buffalo. And then Booger McFarland tonight, he said, Kelvin Benjamin, he's 6'5" and a Popeyes biscuit away from being a tight end. The other guy, I forget who the other commentator is, the third guy, not Jason, but the other guy. He was like, he had to ask him a few seconds later, like, hey, is that like an expression that you guys say in the South or something? Because he'd never heard that one before. Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end. All right,
hey man, that's the way of the NFL. These thinner, faster, sleeker tight ends, no longer the big blocking type.
I mean, everybody needs to eat their Popeyes. That's the takeaway. So we're going to move on to our special discussion for tonight, which is our mid-season review. And both Joseph and I did some preparation for tonight. We broke it down into the AFC and the NFC. So basically tonight we're just going to be talking about where originally the top 6 teams that we predicted would make the playoffs for each of the conferences, and then kind of where they are. And then we're going to talk mostly about each of the best teams, their needs, and what potential trade opportunities there are, because the trade deadline is coming up. I believe it's tomorrow at 1 o'clock. So there's probably going to be a lot of moves tomorrow morning. So I'll go ahead and start with the NFC. So originally, we talked about this in the very first episode of this show, that I predicted that the top 6 NFC teams would be the Rams, the Saints, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Packers, and the Falcons. Right now, the actual top 6 teams are the Rams, the Saints, the Vikings, the Redskins, the Bears, and the Panthers. So there's 3 teams in there that I did not predict that are actually leading. So if you do a quick breakdown by division, the NFC North is led right now by the Bears, who are 4-3, and then followed up immediately by the Vikings, who are 4-3-1. So it's essentially a tie because the Bears haven't played their 8th game yet. The NFC South, the Saints are 6-1, and the Panthers are right behind, knocking on the door at 5-2. The NFC East, the Redskins are 5-2. The Eagles are 4-4. I consider that division to be kind of wide open at this point. And then the NFC West, the Rams are the only undefeated team at 8-0, and the Seahawks are 4 games back at 4-3. So I look at that and I see the Rams and the Saints as kind of favorites in their division, and then in the NFC East and the North, I just see kind of wide open competition because the Packers are underperforming. So, I guess as far as team needs, I I think for the Rams, I don't have. They're sitting at 8-0. They're the best team in the league. I don't think that they necessarily need to make any moves at this point. They have some cornerback and wide receiver injuries. I think right now Cooper Kupp's out and Aqib Talib I think is out as well. But those position groups really actually have a lot of depth. And so I don't think that they need to make any, definitely no splash trades or anything like that. But I don't really think they need to make any kind of trades. Maybe for like a backup or something, but nothing that moves the needle. The Saints are the next team. They're at 6-1. They need some cornerback and safety help. Lattimore is playing well, but he's not. He can only defend one side of the field. So the Saints are not doing particularly well in pass defense right now. And so if you're looking for one area for the team to improve, it would be that. Right now, their pass defense is actually 28th in the league in terms of yards. But their rush defense is they actually have the first ranked rush defense in terms of yards per game, which I was surprised by.
Who?
The Saints.
It rush yards per game?
Yeah, in defense. Okay. Defense. Rush yards per game. So I think they just need more. They need help in the secondary. So cornerback, safety. And they actually already picked up Eli Apple from the New York Giants, who was their first round pick from 2016. I don't think that's enough, though. I don't think he turned into any kind of star. So they might need to make more picks there, but honestly, I don't think they will because they kind of just made that big move. So they might be static for the remainder of the season. Then next is the Vikings, who are at 4-3-1. They need running back help and they need O-line help. They don't have enough at the running back position. Their run game is 29th in the league. And they have a fine passing game. Kirk Cousins is fine in the passing game. He's got some really talented receivers. We talked about Adam Thielen earlier tonight, but they're giving up sacks, and he's not getting enough time to throw the ball. So I just want to see more O-line help for them. And then maybe another corner. They're kind of middle of the road in terms of passing yards and passing defense. So, but I think if they had to pick one thing, it would be O-line, clearly. And we saw that very obviously in their game against the Saints this week. Next team that I wanted to look at, even though they aren't actually in the top 6, is the Packers, because I think the Packers are still in the discussion, even though they're not technically in the top 6. They need running back help big time. They need D-line help big time. Their running back, Aaron Jones, just not enough. The Packers are 22nd against the run. They need D-line help. And just in general, I feel like the team's kind of not that great outside of Rodgers. So any kind of big trades that they could make would probably help them a lot. But I think running back is probably the number one need, and then maybe D-line second. Next, the Panthers. So the Panthers are kind of an interesting team because nobody seems to really be talking about them. But they're 5th, actually, in the NFL right now at 5-2. They need some help at wide receiver. They're only 22nd in the passing offense. And they need some cornerback help as well. They're middle of the road passing defense. But they're doing well in turnover ratio. So their defense is not really the big issue. I think they just need a little bit more splash on offense. Bears are 4-3. They need secondary help. They have a great D-line, and Trubisky has some decent receivers. And he just needs to keep developing. But their need is in the secondary. The Redskins are at 5-2. I think they need some more. They need receiving help. But I honestly don't think they're necessarily going to do anything because they have Alex Smith, who we all know is a very conservative quarterback, and He's going to take care of the ball, and he's not going to give you a ton of points, but he's not going to turn the ball over. And they have a defense that ranks 5th in overall yards, and they're tied for 3rd in turnovers with +7. So they might just kind of ride out their defense, especially since they're already leading the division. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a trade on offense, either for a running back or a receiver. Then only 2 more teams. So the Eagles are 4-4. Man, I don't know. The Eagles just need to play better. they just need to play better. I don't necessarily think they need to make a bunch of big trades. They need to play better, and they need to get help in the secondary, because I know they've had some injuries. Right now, they're 24th against the pass. They have a negative turnover ratio, and they're just not. Their biggest problem is their offense is just not clicking right now. They're in the bottom half in every category. So they have the pieces. They just need to play better. I think they're still drunk from their Super Bowl win. This is one of the longest Super Bowl hangovers I've seen. So they need to snap out of it. And then lastly, the Falcons, who I predicted would be in the top 6, they're not. But I think that they're still technically in the discussion for a wild card, so I kept them in here. They're 3-4. They need running back help. They need cornerback help. They need safety help. They need a lot of help. Their only asset right now is Matt Ryan and that passing offense. They have a terrible rushing attack. They're 30th in the league in rushing, and they're 30th in total defense. 30th against the pass, 19th against the run. And they're 30th in points per game allowed. So pretty much anything that you can give them on defense, and they'll get better. So that's it for the NFC. I don't predict that a whole lot of big moves are going to be made with these teams, but a lot of these teams, it seems like cornerback is a big thing that's needed. So some of these teams might be competing for some guys. So we'll see. I think there's lots of teams that are kind of in sell mode. The Giants, the Niners, to some extent. Although I think the Giants are really in sell mode right now. They have a couple guys that might leave for better pastures. There was that whole rumor with Patrick Peterson. Maybe that'll materialize into something, although he seemed to deny it. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it'll be interesting to see what happens before 1 o'clock tomorrow. So that's enough with the NFC. Let's talk about the AFC. What's the situation in the AFC?
All right, so my predictions from the beginning of the year, from seeds 1 to 6, were the Patriots, Steelers, Jags, Chargers, Texans, Chiefs. So of those, 5 of those teams are currently in the top 6 now. So I guess I've done an okay job there. Just flipped around. The biggest change is basically instead of the Jags, it's the Bengals. That's the only switch there. So now it's from 1 to 6. It's the Chiefs, Patriots, Steelers, Texans, Chargers, Bengals. So the way I kind of did mine, similar to Jeremy's, but looking at those 6 teams plus 2 others, I included the Dolphins for fun, and then another contender team that I think is there, and then kind of looking at what they need, and at the end with the more exciting teams, I'll propose some very crazy trade options. So first, let's look at the Patriots. So they have a good amount of interceptions. They're terribly low in sacks and forced fumbles. They're 8th in passing yards per game, but their pass rush and defense is weak. But they always have enough to get by. So even though the Patriots statistically, since Brady's been there, I'd say maybe half of the time statistically, they don't look like they have a very good defense, but their defense is just able to show up. It's like the numbers don't work out to actually reflect how their defense can play. And obviously Brady's Brady, and they mostly focus on their leadership, experience, and their offense. But they could use some wide receiver help. Picking up Josh Gordon was big, and I think he can have a bright future with him if he can just stay healthy and stay disciplined. Right? It sounds like there was a off the field issue that they're going to discipline him for. I think he was tardy. But the reason why they need a wide receiver is mostly because of Gronk. Because Gronk right now is their number one wide receiver, and their number 2 in terms of yards is their backup running back James White. So they lost Amendola. They have Edelman, but if you lose Gronk due to health, right? And it's not very sustainable to have the next guy be your backup running back. Then losing that double team on Gronk is huge. And who knows if Gordon's going to be consistent. So they could really use some wide receiver help here. Brady is, only probably 80 to 85% of how he's been in the past with his greatness. So if they want to get past the Chiefs, then I think that they're going to have to add another offensive piece there. So the Dolphins, they're not contenders. I just wanted to add them in here because they're my team. They're close. So literally a quarterback. That's it. That's literally it. We have enough offensive weapons. If we can continue using Parker, I like Amendola, Wilson, and Grant. Still have Kenny Stills. Kenny and Drake is showing promise, like you said. Gore is consistent. Gasecki, our tight end, has some potential on defense. I like our defensive line. Though our secondary is inconsistent, as Jeremy and I have mentioned before, many weeks, they have players, right? Fitzpatrick and Jones, show up, and Hayward or Howard, I believe Xavier Howard, they show up at times. They have talent. They're young, and they're going to get better. Our problem, besides just obviously the quarterback position and offensive line, it's leadership. We don't have a face of the franchise. We don't have someone to lead. So
that's so true.
Yeah, and even if Tannehill was playing well, like before he got injured or is out, then he still wasn't that guy. He was, even when he was playing well in the past few years, he was never that guy. Be the face. There's just something about him there's just some intangible that he doesn't have that every team needs to have in their leader.
The swagger.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to stick with X Factor, not use such profanity on our show. So we need to have that. So we need a quarterback, and with a solid quarterback, I think we're a 10-win team. And once Brady retires, I think we're the favorite in the AFC East. I like the potential we have. On our defense.
After what I saw from the Bills tonight, I think they're going to give you some hot competition.
Yeah. So seriously though, once Brady retires, you look at how bad the Bills are and the Jets have to develop. Like, it's pretty much a given the Dolphins can win the division if we get a quarterback. All right, moving on.
So, well, real quick, my question for you though is, if we're talking trade deadline moves, who would you pick up though?
Yeah, so
quarterback wise,
that I don't really have anything. I would just be general there. Okay,
do you think it would be smart for them to try to make some sort of splash quarterback trade, or do you want to do it in the draft?
I want to do it in the draft. I think we should trade Tannehill. Osweiler has shown to be a very competent backup.
Yes.
Probably the most competent backup in the league. And if he had a good team around him, could be a starter on like the lower end of teams. But you're right, his arm strength, something has happened to his arm because his mechanics and his arm strength is way down. So I don't know what's happened to him, but we need to move on. Bengals. Okay. They have very good interception and sack numbers, but their defense is atrocious. They're just as bad as Atlanta. I think they're like third between points and yards. They're like 28th in one, and maybe like 30th or 31st in the other. So trying to think about that. How does that work out? Well, it suggests that they can make big plays and have big playmakers, but they don't have very good consistency and aren't making plays when they need to be, like when the other team makes big plays or touchdown plays. Because, like I said, they're very good at the interceptions and sacks, but their points and yards per game is terrible. So they need probably a solid linebacker or safety, because I think their defensive line is pretty solid. But they're just giving up way too many yards and points per game.
Yeah, they're actually, real quick, they're 5-3, but they're -16 in points.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
Yeah,
I mean, that is awful. What are they going to do with Andy Dalton? They're like the Dolphins. I have here, they're stuck in some kind of purgatory, right? Of like the 7-9 season. If they don't do something serious with their quarterback situation, they're going to stay stuck there.
That reminds me of a team we both know well.
Yeah. So I'll skip the next two. We'll talk about those later. So the Texans. So really, they didn't really need anything. They just needed to play their fuller potential. But losing Will Fuller, no pun intended, was that's a huge loss for them. Reports have already come out that they're not going to go after Des Bryant, which they should get. They should get somebody. So the Texans need to pick up a wide receiver, and that's it, just to fill up, take over Will's spot. But to Des Bryant, how is he not playing?
I know. I'm wondering the same thing every day.
Yeah, this makes me question, and this is not just from Des, but other players. This makes me truly question when players say that they care about winning and playing well and playing football. I don't believe it as much anymore. I think they just care about making money, lots of it, an absurd amount of money. Because how does Des Bryant, and Des, how you'll ever listen to the show, but how can we believe guys like you and so many other players who say they're competitive, who want to play, who want to win, but you're not playing in the NFL right now? You're a very good player, very talented. I don't know why I'm speaking to him like he's right here, but Des is very good.
If you are watching, please subscribe to Neuralizer and follow me on Twitter at the Practice Squad. Okay.
Yeah, you're he's talented, and he would be, a number one wide receiver on like every team except like 3, which we know who they are. So I kind of question his devotion towards the game versus, being the highest paid wide receiver, which, come on now, Des, you're not a top 3 wide receiver. You may be pushing for 3 or 4, but you're not top, so you shouldn't get paid like top. So if that's what's happening, you're missing out on the prime years of your career. So he needs to get picked up, because if he was on the Texans or the Patriots, man, that would be great to see. All right, moving on. Chargers. So below average defense, but they've been riddled with injuries. The biggest one is Joey Bosa. He has not played at all this year, so that's probably a big deal there. Their run game's decent. Phillip Rivers has played great, been consistent his whole career. If it weren't for the fact that he played during, Manning, Brady, Breeze, he'd definitely be a Hall of Famer or be considered one of the best of his era. Getting a wide receiver would not hurt. They have a decent wide receiver core, but if they went out and got a solid 2 or 3, a number 2 or number 3 wide receiver, that'd be a big pickup for them for how well Phillips playing. Chiefs. Okay. Pass protection. That's it. Their pass protection has been really bad. Patrick Mahomes has only made it look good because he's able to scramble really well. As Jeremy and I mentioned before, he looks like Russell Wilson very much. But we know that play is not sustainable. We know in the past with Russell Wilson, RG3, Cam Newton, Aaron Rodgers, right? You can't have Michael Vick and Randall Cunningham can't exist in the NFL anymore. Those are rare phenomena, and that's just not a sustainable way of playing, and it's not going to happen anymore in today's league. So they need to protect him, because he's going to get hit one of these days, or he's going to lose some speed eventually as he gets older, and you can't sustain on him being so good at scrambling. So if they had pass protection, that's really just it. All right, here are the fun ones. Ravens and Steelers. So the Steelers don't only need to do one thing, and that's they need to trade somebody. And I wonder who that person is, but we'll get to that. We'll start with the Ravens. Okay, the Ravens. Their defense is amazing. Number 1 in points per game, as in the least points per game on defense, and number 1 in yards per game. So they give the least amount of yards and least amount of points. I don't know the age of their defense, so if it's old, that could be bad. So I don't know if they're young or old or not. They need to win now. I think, Jeremy, let me know if you agree or disagree, but I would say if you having a great defense and okay offense is much better than a great offense and an okay defense, especially
totally.
Especially in the playoffs. A great defense and okay offense can get you 11 games, no problem. 11 wins, no problem.
Defense wins championships.
Yeah, you want the better offense to get you to the playoffs, but once you get to the playoffs, you need that defense because you're playing the best teams. So they need to be in a win now mentality if they have that defense. So they need to get rid of Flacco. Like Flacco,
but they're
is
not. We all know they're not going
no,
to, though.
Unfortunately, so let me clarify. I don't think they should get rid of him now. I'm saying at the end of the year they should get rid of him. They need to keep him now. That's an obvious one, and see how far they can get. But if they can get a quarterback and a running back, I hate to say this, man, because we both know how much we've disliked the Ravens for like 6 or 7 years now. They would be the team to beat in the AFC for the next 5 years if they get a running back and a quarterback. To have that defense and that level of playmaking, they would be the team. It basically would be Rams and Ravens every year. So their run game is atrocious. They do not have a run game.
Yeah.
They need to figure out what to do with Flacco. So here we go. Ready? Drum roll. The Steelers trade Le'Veon Bell to the Ravens for draft picks because the Steelers, they have to get rid of Bell. I'm so glad James Conner has played well for the Steelers. He's had 3 consecutive 100-yard games for them, and his first game was 100-yard games for them as well. Bell, you know what? It's his mentality is detrimental to his team. It's not just playmaking is great, we know that, but this is bad. This is not good for the locker room. It doesn't matter if he comes back and plays amazing for them. His teammates will always remember.
It's pretty hard to come back after that.
It will be affected and negatively. They need to trade him. He still has high value. Trade him now. Roethlisberger still has another 1 to 3 years. You still have Brown. You still have Juju Smith-Schuster. You have a solid defense. They're slightly above average, but some young guys on the team. If Connor can be consistent, they have a run game. They have it. They can win in the next few years. Trade Le'Veon Bell. I hate to say it. I'm a Michigan State fan, and I love watching him there. But unfortunately, I don't know what's happened in Michigan State because we've had
blah, blah, blah,
basketball.
Blah, blah,
on basketball and football with like integrity in our sports, and yet look at Draymond Green's and Le'Veon Bell.
There's no integrity in college sports.
It's making me sick, man. Draymond Green, what's happened to him? Le'Veon Bell, what's happened to him? Trade him to the Ravens. They now have an instant run game. Even if they still have Joe Flacco, they're going to go to the playoffs.
So the thing about that is, I'm just going to say real quick that I don't think the Steelers would ever trade Le'Veon Bell to someone within the division.
So yes, but there's not that many other buyers around. Like I can't think of the Raiders. I mean, who else? Who?
No, the Raiders aren't buying anybody right now. They're in a fire sale mode.
Exactly. So, unless there's a team in the NFC, that's the thing. I do agree with you on that, but it all worked out for these last 2 teams to go over. Get rid of Bell, so the Ravens have a run game, and then at the end of the year, somehow, I don't know what the Ravens can do. Maybe they just get rid of all of their future draft picks. The Ravens go and get Andrew Luck as quarterback.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now we're in fantasy land here.
Because Andrew Luck has not worked out with the Colts. He's been there for like 6 years. It is not working. The Colts are miserable. They're not going to be able to have enough to build around him. I know that's a little much, but yeah. The Steelers have to trade Bell, even if it's not going to be to a division team. I know I'm running on here, guys. Sorry, I'm ranting, but I have to. No matter who they trade him to, Le'Veon has to leave the Steelers, and that'll be great for them. And he can go. I don't know where he'll go, but he can go somewhere else.
I agree that he needs to leave.
Yeah. So I'll end there. I kind of ranted there towards the end, but I'm done with the AFC.
Okay. So real quick, I'm just going to throw in, because I didn't talk about the Niners, but the Niners need to trade away Pierre Garçon, and I would like to see them, because I heard that the Broncos are rumored to be shopping Demaryius Thomas. I would love to see the Niners pick up Demaryius Thomas.
Dude, him and Goodwin. Goodwin's got talent.
Yeah, I think that could be a good fit. I would have loved to see Dez, but that's not going to happen. Yeah. He's not going to sign for a team that can't win right now. Okay, so we're going to move on to our prediction segment for the night. And as of this week, as I mentioned earlier in the night, that I'm just winning at life this week. I was 13-1 on my picks this week. So I'm 76, 43, and 2, which is a 64% winning percentage. And Joseph was 10-4 this week, which is, being mediocre at life. Is
71%, man.
46-2. No, Joseph's only 3 games behind me, so I can't rag on him too much. He's 61% winning percentage. All right, so our game predictions for this week. I will start off. So our first game this week is Raiders at 49ers, the most irrelevant game of the year. Raiders at 49ers. I'm picking Raiders. Falcons at Redskins.
Falcons.
Okay, I'm picking Redskins. Bears at Bills. I'm going Bears.
Bears.
Chiefs at Browns.
Chiefs.
Same. Lions at Vikings. I'm going Vikings.
Same.
Jets at Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Same. Steelers at Ravens. Ravens.
Oh, I'm going Ravens too. Oh, I thought you'd go Steelers on that one actually.
No, I'm after your fantasy talk about the Ravens, I'm just like drooling at the mouth thinking about the possibilities with my favorite team of all time. Bucks at Panthers.
Panthers.
Same. Texans at Broncos. I'm going Broncos actually.
Texans.
Okay. Not surprised. Chargers at Seahawks.
I hated this game, but I have to go Seahawks.
Yeah, me too. I'll probably watch that game. Rams at Saints.
Yours.
I'm going Rams.
Saints.
Okay. Packers at Patriots.
Patriots.
Same. And lastly, Titans at Cowboys. I'm going Cowboys.
Same.
Okay, so we differ on 1, 2, 3 picks this week. So yeah, we'll see. That's the difference. So maybe you'll make it up. Buys this week. There's 6 teams on buys: Bengals, Colts, Giants, Eagles, Cardinals, and Jaguars. And we just realized actually this week that the Dolphins and the Niners are both on bye the same week in 2 weeks from now. So we're going to have some special topics cooked up for you guys in a couple weeks. So make sure you join us. Join us every week, but make sure especially that you join us in a couple of weeks. So our game to watch this week, I'm picking Rams at Saints. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, I think that was clear number 1. Steelers and Ravens would have been a good number 2, but I mean, can the Rams win on the road? The Saints just won on the road against the Vikings. They're 6-1. This is clearly the NFC showdown. Championship showdown. And if the Saints win, dude, I looked at both their schedules. If the Saints win, they may get the number 1 seed. This may be it. Because they both have brutal schedules remaining, but the Rams is more difficult, including still the Chiefs, which is amazing. They still play the Chiefs. And the Seahawks. So this game may be the decider for the number 1 seed.
Yeah, no, you could be right. Well, either way, it's going to be an exciting game. I believe it's played Sunday afternoon. So make sure to check it out. All right, guys. Great episode tonight. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. I typically upload on Tuesday evenings, the day after we go live. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Go Ravens! I'm just kidding.
Boo.